Yes.
Yeah.
Like openly gay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Who?
Darren Young, kind of the he was like the first WWE signed openly gay wrestler.
Interesting.
Pat Patterson, who was Vince
Oh
McMahon's
yeah.
right hand man.
That man is. Ooh, yeah. He gay.
Who else is Anthony Bowens from the Acclaimed in AEW is openly gay.
Yeah.
There's a lot of bi wrestlers too.
Are they still homophobic about it, or is it cool now?
It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool now. Depending on the promotion kind of deal, there are a lot of wrestlers that don't get work on mainstream promotions anymore because they're pieces of shit.
Yeah.
And they all decided to start a wrestling promotion together.
Oh, I've heard you. I think talked about this once, and it sucks.
You.
Choose your narrative.
Yeah, how's your narrative?
Oh,
Matt?
yo, choose
How's
your
your narrative?
narrative.
Yeah, choose your narrative. Unless
you can't count to 6 million. All right, it's impossible. No one's ever done it before.
Anyway, welcome to Learning the Ropes. I'm Matt.
I'm Andrew, who's enthusiastic today.
Well, I'm too early, as always. I'm Tyler.
And today we got a good one.
I'm so hyped for this episode. I'm so hyped for it, Matt.
I've only heard rumors about this, and I currently am afraid for my safety.
The only thing that Tyler knows beforehand about this episode is that normally we'll have like a half page to a page of notes beforehand. This week we have 4 pages of notes.
Yeah. Yeah, we do. We really do. There's a whole bunch here. How much of it will genuinely get said? Probably not all 4 pages.
Probably not all 4 pages.
But we're gonna try and there's some stories that are going to get told.
Yes.
But before we get to any of that, I have to ask, this might be the most excited I am, certainly so far, to ask this question. We ask it a lot of our boy Tyler. Tyler, what do you know about the Undertaker?
Oh, I know about the Undertaker. He was big when I was in middle school.
Fuck yeah. Me too.
Died. He killed people and died, right? Isn't that
Oh god, you're asking about the lore?
I'm asking
the
about
Undertaker
the
lore?
I had a fight in middle school because someone was like, he actually died, and then came back to life.
They believed it, dude. It was still real to them. Damn it.
Yeah. I was like 9, and I'm like, you're stupid. You're stupid.
God, that might be another time where we really get into. Oh well, actually, never mind. I know exactly the time in the future when we'll get into Undertaker's lore and backstory.
Yeah. Because at this point, the lore doesn't exist. There is no.
Not
lore.
Really.
No.
The lore exists as questions.
Yeah. So Mean Mark Calloway, as he was formerly known, or Mean Mark Callis, as he was formerly known, the real life Mark Calloway, the Undertaker. He debuts for the WWF on November 22nd, 1999 at the 4th annual Survivor Series.
That was 1990, not 99.
Shit.
You're not allowed to misspeak, sir. This is a podcast.
He's gonna edit it now. Like, no, actually, Andrew said 1999, and Tyler said 1990. Yeah, he's gonna fucking edit it.
Just to make me look bad.
Yeah.
He debuts for the WWF on November 22nd, 1990, at the 4th annual Survivor Series. He's actually a surprise 4th member for Ted DiBiase's $1 million team, which was himself, The Undertaker, and Rhythm and Blues, which was a tag team of the Honky Tonk Man and Greg the Hammer Valentine.
Yeah, so this was a Survivor Series match, right?
Right. And so Survivor Series, traditional Survivor Series match, it's a multi-man tag team match. In this case, it's 4-on-4. And everyone is eliminated rather than first fall finishes the match. It's everyone on a team needs to be eliminated for the other team to win. And they were facing, in a winning effort, the dream team of the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, Coco Beware, and the WWF World Tag Team Champions at the time, the Hart Foundation, who we talked about last week.
Yeah, and this being the debut of The Undertaker, the greatest gimmick of wrestling history, the Undertaker's team wins. And The Undertaker himself, however, didn't make it to the full end of the actual match. He wasn't what they call the sole survivor. He was actually eliminated by countout after he eliminated Coco Beware with his iconic as hell finishing move, the Tombstone Pile Driver. And he also eliminated Dusty Rhodes, hitting a diving axe handle off the ropes. And then Dusty has some kind of altercation with who was Undertaker's manager at the time, Brother Love, on the outside. And Taker leaves the ring and is beating Dusty Rhodes up the aisle, and gets counted out, and he's out of the match. It's a way to get, you got the monster out without having to pin him. Is the basic kind of gimmick of that kind of booking. Also, at this time, as a side story, I told Matt I was going to talk about the egg. For this Survivor Series pay-per-view, there was this whole weird thing where there was an egg, and they were waiting for this egg to hatch.
Wait, what?
Yeah, there was a big egg, a really big
Survivor
egg.
Series happens in November. It's a Thanksgiving.
Is it like a man-sized egg? Is it like a duck? Is it like an ostrich? How big
it was like a man-sized egg.
It's a man-sized egg. It was like a T-Rex egg.
Yeah. Probably larger than what a T-Rex egg would be like. This is, you've stumbled on my other area of expertise, which is dinosaurs. That's not even a joke.
15-minute segue into the actual size of dinosaurs.
Yeah, I won't do that. In terms, we don't really know what I think we kind of know what Tyrannosaur eggs look like, but we don't know what juvenile Tyrannosaurs look like because babies don't fossilize all that well.
Oh man, babies don't fossilize.
In before somebody that's a bigger paleontology nerd than me comes at me with we have this many 90% complete specimen, whatever. I like dinosaurs. Giant egg, anyway, for this Thanksgiving pay-per-view. And legend has it, and legend is right about some things, and in terms of what how the Undertaker tells it, it's not necessarily true, but legend has it that whatever was in the egg was gonna be the Undertaker. I don't mean the Undertaker as in his gimmick was destined to emerge from the egg. I mean Mark Calloway was potentially going to be saddled with the gimmick of whatever they were doing with this fucking egg. And Undertaker didn't want to do it. And they ended up Vince called him and pitched this idea of the Undertaker. And he decided to do that instead because he didn't want to be in the egg. All of which we're not really gonna watch. But yeah, legend has it what ended up coming out of the egg, big turkey. It's called the Gobbledygooker. A guy in a turkey mascot costume. I'm really glad it wasn't the Undertaker. Instead of a turkey, we got the goat. The absolute, the guy who stands tallest above all of professional wrestling. The Undertaker, the Phenom.
To kind of explain the Undertaker character just a little bit more. At this point, he is very much he's painted as just an Old West mortician.
Mm-hmm.
He's not, at this point, he's not the dead man. We kind of come to know him in as more of his lore kind of gets dropped. At this point, he is just he is an Undertaker. He is just a creepy guy who buries people.
Mm-hmm.
And who decided he wanted to be a wrestler.
Yeah, the best way to get more people to bury, thus furthering his business, was to be a wrestler.
Taker for the rest of 1990, his debut year, just squashes people. He just like he's put in the ring with nobodies, and he just sweeps house with them. You know, he matches that last maybe 5 minutes are kind of what we're seeing from the Undertaker. Then February 1991, Brother Love, his manager, is like, man, it's really weird that a character called the Undertaker has a manager called Brother Love, who's like a guy in a white suit and like the reddest red face.
Mm-hmm.
Is he from the South?
Yes.
Okay. Interesting.
Not red face as in like I need to elaborate. Not red face as in like putting on like a Native American affect. I mean red face as in like he's meant to look sunburned and like angry.
That's why I asked from the South. No, that he looks like with like the white suit thing. I'm like, yeah, this guy is a very wet looking man, probably.
Yeah,
So
that's a good way to describe
this man's gonna
Bruce
be a very
Pritchard,
wet looking
aka
man.
Brother Love.
He really did. Like, you look at pictures of Bruce Pritchard now, like, I didn't even think about it until you just said it. A wet man is how I would describe Brother Love.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
100%. He was a moist individual.
And so they introduce a new manager for the Undertaker, Paul Bearer, who is a name that's a little on the nose.
Do you get it? Do you get it, Tyler? His name's Paul Bearer.
Oh, I get it. Like the people who carry the car. I was one of those once.
Yep, his first name was Paul, last name Bearer.
Yeah.
I love wrestling. I love The Undertaker.
Have you guys seen the one? I forget which country, but it's like an African one, and they're like jamming the whole time. No, okay.
Oh, the meme? Yeah.
That's not just a meme; it's a real thing, but it's also a meme. Yeah.
The very real like cultural thing that they do that the internet found and put
which is awesome.
Catchy EDM on and made it a meme.
They also threatened, I forget which president, but they threatened one of the presidents with physical violence, and that was pretty cool.
Hey, yo.
Yeah. Pretty cool. So anyway, moving on.
I like it.
So they introduced Paul Bearer, who just like moans a lot.
Oh.
He iconic character in wrestling, but it's a little hard to explain Paul Bearer.
Yeah.
He kind of
it's a little like without just looking at him.
He kind of just like sits. He kind of just like is outside the ring and is like, "Oh yes,
oh yeah."
Oh,
I love Paul Bearer, dude. He's a spooky man.
Yeah. He's real life mortician too. Like
yeah, he was like trained. His real name William Mooney.
Yo, I kind of respect that.
Yeah, real life mortician, and he was like wrestling now or not, managing.
I can get paid to be a creep.
Yeah.
And at this time, they introduce an urn to the the Undertaker character. That Paul Bearer would kind of just carry to the ring with him.
Yeah, the urn's a MacGuffin. It's kind of the first like we talk about like Undertaker lore, and we'll get there eventually, like doing the actual like backstory and stuff. Right now, I said earlier, I said like the lore is there in the form of like questions, and the question is like, what the fuck is this urn thing? Like, what's the deal? And basically the urn, like, to varying degrees, controls the Undertaker for Paul Bearer, gives the Undertaker his power, heals the Undertaker during matches.
Heals him?
Yeah, cheating. As some would like to put it. But also
buffs in a duel, that's not fair.
Yeah, not fair at all. Whatever. Fair. But yeah, it like heals Undertaker up, and also people think it like controls him. I don't know at this time, unless I might be jumping ahead of the match we're going to watch, but I don't know if they've ever like had anybody open the urn before. Normally when they do that, there's just like a bright light that comes out of it. Still no concrete explanation really on what the urn is to this day that I know anyway.
It's just like a thing that sometimes does some things and sometimes does other things.
Yeah.
The urn does what they need the urn to do.
Exactly. And that like seals together the gimmick of the Undertaker. In time for the Undertaker to make his debut on the grandest stage of them all, at WrestleMania 7, where he wrestled a match against and then defeated a real life murderer, who we won't go into too much detail about, Superfly Jimmy Snuka.
We could go into a little bit of the detail.
Oh, wait, like he actually killed people?
Mm-hmm.
So,
did he murder his family?
Superfly Jimmy Snuka. His girlfriend died, and he was the only suspect. And then Vince McMahon paid off everyone.
Ooh.
Yep.
Then
was it like one of those fluke things where you accidentally just get stabbed 18 times? Was it like that? Oh man, how did his body get all these stab wounds? Was it like a choke?
I don't actually know.
See.
So hold on. On May 10th, 1983, a few hours after defeating Jose Estrada at a WWF television taping, Snuka placed a call for an ambulance. They arrived at his home. They found his girlfriend Nancy Argentino had been injured. She was transported to a medical center where she died shortly after of undetermined cranial-cerebral injuries. Autopsy's findings show Argentino had more than 24 cuts and bruises on her head, ear, chin, arms, hands, back, buttocks, legs, and feet. The district attorney was notified of the possibility of foul play. He was the only suspect.
Can't imagine why there were no other suspects.
32 years after the incident, Snuka was arrested and charged with third-degree murder and voluntary manslaughter in relation to the death. He agreed to go to a preliminary hearing, and basically he pleaded not guilty, and it was determined that he was not mentally competent in order to enough to be able to stand trial. And then he died.
That's fucked up.
Yeah, now that we're kind of at the end of the Dark Side of the Ring portion of this this episode, the last that I'll say about it, fuck that guy. As like just allegedly, I don't want to get in any hot water legally where I'm saying definite facts about anything. I will say, for my own personal opinion, fuck Jimmy Snuka. I'm glad The Undertaker beat him at WrestleMania. And also that he's dead.
That was his punishment. He lost to The Undertaker
Yeah.
for murder. Oh, man.
Well,
you know who he should have killed? Vince McMahon. What?
Friend of the show, Vincent Kennedy McMahon.
All I'm saying, it would have been better. All I'm saying.
On that note,
what did the Undertaker do after he beat Jimmy Snuka, Matt?
he feuds with the Ultimate Warrior for a hot minute, until the Ultimate Warrior is suspended from the WWF and then later fired for holding Vince McMahon hostage for money.
Like in real life?
Yes.
Yo,
not actually hostage. What I mean is like he didn't. Let me clarify.
I'm like, my man did nothing wrong, all right? My man, a hero. Give this man an award.
So
we should all be doing that.
This episode has a lot of tangents. So after Warrior beats Hogan at WrestleMania, which we covered last week. He's the WWF champion, and his contract was like near expiring, and so they go into contract renegotiations with Vince McMahon, and the Ultimate Warrior asked for like stupid money. He was like, "I want like $500K a match." Like that amount of stupid money.
Yeah.
Conor McGregor money.
Yes.
That's not as much as Conor McGregor, but yeah.
And Vince McMahon decides, in real life, he decides that he's going to, he accepts the contract. And then at his soonest convenience, which was at SummerSlam 91, at his soonest convenience, he has Warrior drop the title back to he has Warrior drop the title back and just suspends and immediately fires him. He gets like a month of Warrior gets like a month of his new rate.
Yeah.
That's pretty good money, though.
Yeah.
You could retire off that month.
And there goes Hulk Hogan Jr.
It would have been cooler if he actually like took him hostage. Like, you know, they're in the office and he goes, "Nah, he can't leave.
You
Pay
can't
me."
leave. I'm the
That would've
Ultimate
been
Warrior.
Would have been so much cooler, but that's my headcanon for how it happened.
And it kind of, after that feud kind of settles down, we're leading into Survivor Series, you know, anniversary of the debut of The Undertaker, and The Undertaker earns a shot at the WWF champion.
Now, Tyler, who is
Yes.
the WWF champion?
It's-
Do we know right now? Have we talked about it?
I don't think so. Is it Hulk Hogan?
You've learned well. You've learned well. It's your boy, Big Terry from Florida, Hulk Hogan, WWF champion.
When in doubt, the belt's on Hogan.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And now we've set the stage for Survivor Series 1991 in good old Detroit, Michigan.
Good old Detroit, Michigan. It's one for me. I'm a Michigan guy. Go Lions. I'm crying now. Craig is back. And so are we.
We're back. Yeah.
This match had it all. This match had it all? It had weird dudes, like my boy Paul Bearer, fucking awesome king. It had giant men flying through the sky. It had Hulk Hogan losing. It had everything. It had it all.
I've taught you well to root against Hulk Hogan. Agents of the brain rejoice.
A lot of the time we kind of talk about how like watching this for the show gets more enjoyment out of these matches than like when me and Andrew have to watch them to do our pre-notes, because we'll kind of watch everything beforehand to make sure that we have talking points and stuff in case we can't come up with stuff on the spot. And it's really interesting because I'm looking at the match notes and there are two bullets about the match. One reads hot garbage.
What? What do you mean? It had all the characters that you could possibly want.
When we first watched this, I hated it. It was like really boring, in my opinion. But watching it again,
No, it wasn't a good fight, but it had weird guys, which immediately brings it up for me. The fucking Ern and the moaning, that's an instant like +2 on the ratings. Like instant, immediate. That doesn't matter how bad it is. You got that, it's higher.
I was excited for this episode forever. I am a huge Taker mark. And so I got a lot of like enjoyment. I don't know, Matt, if you felt similar, of like introducing, like the first time Tyler saw The Undertaker.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, this is a legend. Like, this is a guy he's like a figure out of myth, and it's presented that way like immediately. And especially because he was heel at the time, so they were like, he's just a monster. He's a zombie.
They look
Like,
like a Bloodborne duo. You're like, oh yeah, that's like it's like the fucking corrupted hunter or something like that with the urn. You got to break the urn first to like hurt him. It was straight up out of like a Souls game. It was great.
but yeah, I still think it's the match itself. At this time, Taker's a bunch of slow walking, choking. So
He
it
he flew through the sky that one
he
time.
really, oh my god, like
The
He
flying
did.
clothesline? What do you mean? I would have been chopped in half, like getting hit by a saw if that happened to me.
We do see a lot of like the beginning of like, because at this point in time the Undertaker is told to not work like really good matches. He's told to work slow and to do like a lot of these like big like dramatic punches and things like that, but we start to see hints of
It went
what.
from just like a standing to a flying clothesline in like a split second. Literally,
Yeah,
it
we
was
start to see
incredible.
hints of just like how good he gets. Like he becomes one of the best wrestlers of all time. Like in the ring, even. Like not just
yeah,
the character, like he becomes one of the best in-ring workers of all time.
yeah. It like there was never before, and there will never be again an Undertaker. Like, he's absolutely. If I could bend this podcast to be about the Undertaker, I would give it a fair shot. Like, um I always view it as like there's a Mount Rushmore in wrestling that people talk about, and then somewhere next to that Mount Rushmore, the Undertaker gets his own statue of equal size. Like, there's not. The Undertaker is absolutely mind blowing, and we will be talking about him several times through in the future. Um, and it's so, like, I think it's genuinely genius the way that he's like presented back then, that it's like he can do those, like, he could leap fucking 9 feet in the air somehow. Like, he's this absolute like athlete, but they make him do all this like slow walking and stuff. And so when he goes to hit an elbow drop on Hulk Hogan, and he jumps higher than the top rope to hit the elbow drop, and like, you're just like, wait, he can do that? Oh,
He
what is
also
this man? Like,
doesn't ever look tired. Like he like just will just pick up Hogan and drop his ass, and like he doesn't look like it was any effort for him at all. Like it's so cool.
yeah, I don't. It's there. I always, when I was a kid, I didn't. I was like, when I was a kid, I wasn't scared of the Undertaker, because at that time the Undertaker is like, spoiler alert, I guess, a babyface at that time. Um, and so I wasn't that scared of him, but like, I would hear stories that it was like, yeah, when the Undertaker first debuted, like, children were scared, and like they had to look away from the TV, and like they were crying in the stands and shit. And it's like, I I don't really believe. I didn't really believe him when I was younger, and I watched some like really old Taker stuff. I believe it now. Like, I would be scared of this monster if I was experiencing the Hulk Hogan era of professional wrestling in real time, and then this zombie shows up that is like unfazed by any offense, and like never appears to get tired, and just sort of slowly, like, I'm talking way too much. But at like the beginning of the match, when like the Undertaker walks into the middle of the ring and then just sort of turns to like watch Hogan while Hogan is like walking around him, and it's like wow, how is the Undertaker commanding so much presence against Hulk Hogan? And he's so scary and intent, like fucking Jason Voorhees. It's absolutely amazing. I love The Undertaker. I've said way too much. I will shut the
I
fuck up.
I have a question. Is this where it starts to get weird wrestling? Like it's always been weird, but like there's like characters now that like I mean like the whole like Earn thing and like Paul Bear. I feel like that's the thing that you see a lot in modern wrestling. But up until this point we haven't seen, is this where it starts to like go that route?
There's always like the weird characters kind of going around. Usually they don't become the like main event. Um, like you'll have characters like IRS who's around at this time, whose thing
The
is
tax
he works for the IRS. He's a tax man.
Vince McMahon's like, fuck. Who let this guy in? What the hell are we doing?
You have guys like later we have guys like the Big Boss Man, whose thing is he's a cop. Like we start to, this is around the time when we're like a lot of wrestling characters are like other jobs.
Interesting.
Yeah, we talked a little bit. I forget if it was on mic or not, but we talked a little bit about like the new generation era, as we would call it. I think that bit's actually getting cut, and so this one might too. But we talked about that, and the new generation is the era where like a lot of those gimmick characters start to come up, and we won't focus on a lot of them. There's like Sparky Plugs, who's a race car driver. There's Isaac Yankum, DDS, who's a dentist. And yeah, it's just like, oh yeah, this guy is this an archetype of this job. Isn't there a Repo Man? Yeah, there's a Repo Man.
The Repo Man.
God.
The Brooklyn Brawler.
Yeah. And we had already seen like George the Animal Steel, where his gimmick is that he was like a wild man,
yeah,
and like actually kind of an animal of a dude. And so it's kind of always, wrestling's a circus, so it's kind of always been a variety show of like, you have your Hulk Hogan's who are like, I'm the best wrestler on earth, and you can't beat me in my 100,000 screaming Hulkamaniacs. And then you also have like the Undertaker, who's an undead wizard guy that like, not so much the wizard yet. We'll get there. God, I love the Undertaker.
But yeah, wrestling gets dumb. We're about to touch like the like 90s, like they really want the dumb wrestling characters as a thing. I mean, we talked earlier in the show about the gobbledygooker.
Yep.
Who was a turkey. We're not gonna talk about Mantar, but there's Mantar, whose thing is he's maybe a Minotaur.
He's definitely a bull man. Whether or not he's exactly a Minotaur, wrestling's stupid and weird. Anyway.
And it's better than all the things you like.
Yes.
Now, Tyler.
Mm-hmm.
Did you notice anything different about this Hulk Hogan match, especially the post-match?
Got his ass kicked.
Yeah.
People were really crapping on him too.
Well, I mean, we've seen Hogan lose. Like we saw him lose with like the Ultimate Warrior.
I think Matt, before we quite get into this, let's talk a little bit about the finish of the match.
That's
I
fair.
think before we get into some other stuff, there's the finish of this match. Undertaker wins the WWF Championship via shenanigans, featuring just out of necessity to name him, Ric Flair. Who we will get into.
That was awesome. But again, this match had it all. Just an untimely appearance, but just some random guy just walks in, puts the chair down, leaves. Had it all. Perfect.
We're gonna talk a lot more about Ric Flair next week.
Yeah.
But for now, he is a person that exists.
Oh, and then I want to ask, in the context of the match, what do you think of the Undertaker's finishing move? I don't know if you had seen it before this, Tyler, but what's your impression of the Tombstone Piledriver?
I thought he did other cooler things besides that during the
Valid.
match.
Valid. Especially because I think some of Undertaker's worst tombstones are the ones from like the Golden Age, the like rock and wrestling kind of
I
era.
see. Okay. Yeah. I don't know. Like it was okay, but again, yeah. Like he did, I think other things that were cooler than that.
Does it look like it could seriously injure somebody's neck?
I feel like it would kill me if he did it to me. Like I would actually die. So yes.
Okay.
Did Hulk Hogan actually break his neck?
And we've broached our subject for what will be a good portion of the rest of this show. Matt, did Hulk Hogan actually break his neck?
So,
Conjecture.
so Taker ends up having a really short title reign, right? The Undertaker has a super short title reign. It lasts 6 days before Hulk Hogan regains the championship. Because it's Hulk Hogan.
Of course.
Now, Taker believes the reason why he was given a short reign is because he was being punished for hurting Hulk Hogan. Hogan, after this match, so like post match, he is just like he stays in the ring for ages, which is very not a Hulk Hogan thing to do.
Also, like something that I did notice, sorry, but like usually he does the thing where like he'll always likes to try to like kick out at the last second. Here he was just flat.
Yeah,
He was flat the entire fucking time.
he like post match we watched like 5 minutes of after the match or something, and it's just Hulk Hogan laying there selling or seemingly selling, and he gets helped backstage by like some of the people working the show, and actually gets taken to the hospital after this match, saying that he can't like feel he doesn't have like full feeling in his fingers. And so Taker uh, uh Mark Calloway believes that he has injured the biggest wrestling star of like ever. Then before the match at this Tuesday in Texas, the show 6 days after where Taker loses the belt, Undertaker and Shane McMahon, Vince McMahon's son, are talking, and Shane McMahon says, "So I watched that like over, and Hulk Hogan's head goes nowhere near touching like the canvas. Like it doesn't make sense that like or the steel chair. Like you protected him all the way through. There's no reason why he would be hurt." And then it kind of gets dropped like in backstage wrestling lore until Hulk Hogan's memoir in 2002,
Mm.
where he says it was his first time wrestling the Undertaker. Uh he says, and I quote, "The first time I wrestled the Undertaker was at Survivor Series 1991. The match ended when Ric Flair, a newcomer who had been champion of both the National Wrestling Alliance and World Championship Wrestling, slipped a chair into the ring. Undertaker hit me with a pile driver on top of the chair and took away my title. He also screwed up my neck something fierce. It wasn't his fault. He took care of me and he made sure my head didn't hit the mat, but the jolt of my neck being stretched like that sent me to the hospital." Right? Then,
Mhm.
a few years later, Hulk Hogan starts a reality show called Hogan Knows Best. And while filming an episode, they're on a cruise, and Hulk Hogan's like putting on a life jacket, and he says, and I quote, This feels like when I got the neck brace on after the Undertaker spiked me on the concrete in Detroit in '74.
Now,
74.
yup, you've noticed there are a few things wrong with that statement.
When was Hulk Hogan born? What year was that?
So everything that's kind of wrong with this statement. Number one,
63.
obviously the match was in 1991. That's when the match happened. So Mark Calloway, the man behind the Undertaker, in 1974 was 9 years old.
I mean, he was probably a big 9-year-old, to be honest. You know, we can't rule this out.
Yeah, could the Undertaker have tombstone pile driven Hulk Hogan in 1974?
Possible.
Maybe if they were in a wrestling match together. The only problem would be that Hulk Hogan didn't start training to be a professional wrestler until the year of our Lord 1977.
Mm-hmm.
Furthermore, he says that the Undertaker spikes him on concrete.
Yes.
Which
It's a
is not what
strange
happened.
How many
shape.
folding chairs have you seen made out of concrete?
Then Hulk Hogan releases a second memoir.
And in between all the slurs, you get the actual memoir.
So somewhere weaved through there.
You have to have a codex actually to find the actual meaning.
And so this is a longer quote, so so it's gonna take me a minute to kind of read through. So he says in his memoir, the thing that made the tombstone work was that the Undertaker stopped your head about a half-inch above the canvas. There wasn't much room for error, but that was true of a lot of moves we performed in the ring. As the match progressed, suddenly Ric Flair walked down to ringside. I saw him out there and I taunted him, and when I wasn't looking and the ref wasn't looking, Rick pushed a folding metal chair onto the canvas. The Undertaker grabbed me again and flipped me over and dropped my head on the metal chair in the nastiest tombstone of all tombstones. That was all part of the plan. What wasn't part of the plan was how hot it was in the arena that night. By that point, I was sweating like a pig. So whether my body was too slippery to hold, or I didn't hang on tight enough, or we both just miscalculated, I'm not sure. But when he dropped that tombstone on me, my skull made contact with the chair. The jolt of the whole move threw my neck out, my neck, calves, shoulders, biceps, triceps, forearms, everything went numb. Instantly. My trap muscles went up around my ears. It was like my body knew I was getting hurt and responded to protect me. It took a few minutes of lying there before I could even get my wits about me. Then, with the help of some officials, I stood up and walked out of the arena. Don't ask me how. It was probably an extremely dangerous thing to do. I wound up in the hospital for days, pressing the morphine button as many times as I could once the numbness subsided and the pain set in. It just ate away at me. A series of medical consultants came from the Mayo Clinic on down, and every doctor thought the danger of paralysis was severe. They wanted to slice me open, but I wouldn't let them. Now,
slice which part of him open? Exactly.
This man is saying that he got dropped on his head, that doctors from the Mayo Clinic were saying that he needed spinal fusion surgery, and that he was pressing the morphing button for days. And then 6 days after...
So that part's probably true. He probably was hitting the morphine button for days, unrelated to the injury, though, for being honest. That part probably is true.
But he says... They told him he needed a spinal fusion. He refuses. Instead, goes to his masseuse. And then is wrestling 6 days later.
You see, the heat expanded the chair so much that that extra half inch was actually 3/4 of an inch, and then that's what happened.
Yeah, we made fun of his comment about Detroit in '74 on the concrete, which I will grant he's misspeaking, misremembering events. It's honestly, we only mention it because it's funny. Otherwise,
It would be awesome though if a 9-year-old Undertaker just actually did that to Hulk Hogan in '74 prior to all the wrestling. This is just like an unrelated incident. He's like, "Fuck that guy" as a 9-year-old, and just jumped his ass.
And so in 2020, so now post Undertaker retiring, Mark Calloway goes on ESPN and he kind of talks a little bit about this match. He says that, and I quote, "We go into the finish. Flair comes down, slides the chair down. I pick him up, and when I tell you I had the brother secure, he was secure. Boom! I gave him the tombstone. Soon as my knees hit, I hear, 'Oh, you got me, brother.' I was 24, 25 years old, and I just crushed Hulk Hogan. That's what was going through my head. They gave me this opportunity. They gave me the chance to run with the ball, and I just hurt the golden goose, and I was devastated, mortified." So I go backstage and ask, "Where's Hulk at?" Right? And oh, he's laying on Vince's floor. So I go in there, and he's laid out on the floor. Oh, and he's carrying on. I'm going to check on him, but then here come the paramedics and stuff. So me here on kayfabe, right? So I go behind the wall with Shane McMahon, and he's playing up the character because that's what they did at the time in front of people who weren't like supposed to be backstage. And she says, so I go behind a wall with Vince McMahon or with Shane McMahon. Me and Shane are behind the wall. Then I hear somebody get my wife and kids on the phone. So you can only imagine, right? Shane's right there telling me, he's like, "Mark," he goes, "his head wasn't anywhere close to touching that mat." I'm like, "No, man, I just couldn't hear it." I was like, "No, man, I heard him," and I couldn't put together a thought. I thought I just killed him.
Yeah.
Then, like I said, he wrestles. Hulk Hogan wrestles 6 days later, and at this point, everyone has seen the match, right? Everyone knows that Hogan's head does not come near the fucking floor. Like, we can go back and watch it. Hogan's head's a good, 6 inches from the floor on that tombstone.
Yeah.
And Taker, he says about confronting Hogan at this Tuesday in Texas, he says, "Terry, I watched it back. Your head never hit." And he was like, "Well, brother, what it was, you had me so tight that I had nowhere to move, and that's what jammed my neck, because I couldn't move at all." And at that point, then I was like, okay. Then I knew, I was like, okay, I kind of realized I know what you're all about, and that's all I needed. So
I love how Hulk Hogan's such a catty bitch the whole time in all this. Undertaker's just like, "Nah, screw it."
Yeah.
What a fucking Chad. What a cool guy.
Yeah, the Undertaker has a reputation backstage in wrestling. To briefly touch on it, I'm sure it might come up in more stories later. But and certainly it wasn't at this time, because he was young and green and just kind of starting out in the company. But I still think it shows the kind of professional that the Undertaker is. And that's his reputation, is that he is stone cold professional. And I don't mean Steve Austin. He's above everything else. Protect the people you're in there with. Do the jobs you need to do. What's best for business is best for everything, to the point that he was what people call the locker room leader. And even to the point that allegedly Vince himself was if there's issues with the boys in the back, you bring them up to Taker before you bring them up to me. Vince is too busy. If the wrestlers are mad at each other, Taker will dispense justice. And so I appreciate that the Undertaker had this interaction with Hulk Hogan and just went, "Man, fuck that guy." I know what that guy's like now.
I'm bigger than this. Don't need it.
Because it's why? Why is Hulk Hogan acting this way? Why is Hulk Hogan so hell-bent on, ruining The Undertaker's chances?
he has that Trump thing where he's just so catty and such a bitch about it, which is funny. It's admittedly funny, but it's just like, this is the gayest thing ever, dude. What are you doing? It's so fucking funny.
Yeah. And I just I don't understand. I have my own preconceived notions about Hulk Hogan, as anyone listening to this podcast knows well by now. I'm not a Hulkamaniac. I don't understand, short of sheer ego, at the idea that somebody would no-sell the Hulkster, that Hulk Hogan was like, I can't be made to look like that, and so he did whatever he thought he could. He's a notorious backstage politicker, and I can't fully condemn wrestling backstage politics, especially back in that era. It seems like it's much less now, which is great. But Hulk Hogan was all about, like, if there was somebody who was getting pushed over him and he didn't like it, he'll find a way to kill that push. And genuinely, fuck Hulk Hogan for trying to take The Undertaker away from professional wrestling.
What I could see, so to play devil's advocate, not really devil's advocate, because but like, I could see him like having it maybe hurt more than like he like thought it would have, and then like he didn't like do his thing where he always fucking has to like like just get out at the last second, because like it like hurt more, and then he was like, I'm just gonna like triple down on this, and then face it, that I got hurt. I could see that potentially being, but even then, that's still stupid.
Yeah. And yeah, it's all really conjecture as far as I'm concerned. We have the details that we've read between Hulk Hogan and The Undertaker. In terms of why it went down this way, we can only kind of make guesses, because it could be legitimately like the Tombstone Piledriver is, until you like look at it hard enough from the perspective of somebody who might have to take the move, it looks like it's really dangerous. It's supposed to look like The Undertaker is doing exactly what Hulk Hogan is pretending he's doing, is spiking him directly on the top of his head. And like, yeah, I could see, I wouldn't be that surprised if it's like Hulk Hogan was afraid of like having to take the move, and he wanted to kind of bury that move and make it look unsafe, and stuff like that, so that like he would never have to risk taking it again, or even he doesn't want other people to have to take that move. But like, ultimately, I hate this kind of behavior from people.
Also, we know the character of Hulk Hogan.
Oh yeah.
And that speaks for itself.
Yeah. The only real question is like, why was Hulk Hogan motivated to like bury The Undertaker with how pale white The Undertaker's skin looked?
Yes.
We might want to cut that.
Before we get any more into that, let's just move on. Andrew, on the Meltzer scale, what do you give this match?
Oh, before we talk about the Meltzer scale, Hulk Hogan even fooled Big Dave, friend of the show. Right. We didn't talk about it. Hulk Hogan actually, he actually
have a lunch with Dave next week. Actually,
yeah, he was laying in the ring
on the Wrestling Observer newsletter. He like Dave Meltzer talks about how there was fears that Hogan was going to have to miss dates. He says, like, after viewing it back several times, it does appear that Hogan's head never came near the chair. However, Undertaker may have jammed Hogan's neck with his knee or something. Like, they fool Dave Meltzer, wrestling reporter, into believing that Hogan might actually be injured.
Yeah. He said, quote, Flair then put a chair in the ring, and Undertaker gave Hogan a tombstone piledriver on the chair for the pin. When watching the show, I thought the best work in the entire show was Hogan selling the tombstone after the match was over, as it took him several minutes to get to his feet, and he looked really groggy, and his selling was completely realistic. That's Big Dave. So for one time, Hulk Hogan was really selling. I'm proud of him. Look at him go. He also no-sold the Tombstone Piledriver, which at that time is not as much of like...
Yeah, we did talk about that. The audacity. Holy shit.
The audacity of this lad. Like, I could not imagine anybody doing it today. Trying to no-sell the fucking Tombstone Piledriver. Man. Anyway, I'm gonna rate this match on the scale. Oh god, what do I want to give it? I'm gonna give it a 1.5.
You're gonna give it a 1.5.
That's what I'll give it. I think it's like the presentation of the Undertaker is really great. That said, the action in the match is like hit and miss a lot. Not super fun to watch.
Yeah, I could see that we're probably gonna be a real kind of different. I'm gonna be with Andrew. The point of the ratings is, in my eyes, is to like kind of look at it on like a more modern lens and then compare it to the at the time. At least that's how I've been treating it for the most part. So with that said, I really can't give it more than 1 star. Like the presentation of the Undertaker works, but that's not really the match. It's pretty boring. Like the match itself, especially when like you compare it to like what the Undertaker is able to do later. And there's like I think the biggest drawback in this match is like it does the Hogan formula that like every match has, and because it's the Undertaker at this point, it just is extra slow. But yeah, so I'm gonna give it 1 star.
I'm gonna differ a lot. I'm gonna give it a 3. I could go higher than a 3, but I'm gonna give it a 3.
You're gonna
It-
give it a 3.
It had everything that I would want. It had weird guys. It had big men flying. It had Hulk Hogan maybe breaking his neck. Who knows? It had everything that I could possibly want. In terms of a character thing, it'd be higher if the action thing was better. But as like a character thing, like it was like top notch for me. So like this might be my favorite character driven match so far. Like even like yeah, like the action wasn't actually as good, but I liked all the character stuff that happened. And I don't know, I like it. It was a short enough match where, to me, it did have enough cool moments that I could point out that I wasn't bored. Yeah,
That's
3.
that's fair enough.
Yeah.
Now for historical
Also,
ratings,
I'm very biased, and I don't like Hulk Hogan. The fact that the the man was laid out, it's going up for me.
Good. Let the hate flow through you.
Yes, yes.
well, something interesting has happened here. This is a first for the Learning the Ropes podcast. This is the first time where all 3 of us have rated a match higher than Dave Meltzer's rating at the time.
All 3 of us.
Big Dave Meltzer gave this match a half star.
Well, he gave all out of the Hulk Hogan ones hires. What does he know? Okay, what does he know?
What does Big Dave know? Friend of the show.
Friend of the show, personal friend. We hang out. We play air hockey together every week. What does he know? What does he know? All right, that's all I'm saying.
I gotta make sure that it's not like libel or no, this isn't print. That it's not
it's not slander.
It's not slander to be like, yeah, we hang out with Dave Meltzer.
I don't think it's slander. It's just a lie. It doesn't damage Dave Meltzer's character to hang out with us.
If anything, it damages our character.
Dude, Big Dave
well,
giving it half a star. Why do I feel like that's not fair? Even though I also rated this match very low. Like,
yeah, it's weird. I think it's the kind of thing where the finish probably plays a really big part
mhm.
in that, where they're trying to build a star, and their way of building a star is to have like 18 moments of interference.
Mhm.
And have Hogan no sell like the star the new person's finisher.
Yeah.
Especially like we've been dealing with Hogan for the past for 5 episodes of Learning the Ropes have involved Hogan in some way, shape, or form, I think. Yeah. No. Yes, 5, including this one, 5. Have involved Hogan in some shape or form. But like Dave Meltzer has been dealing with like the Hulk Hogan formula for years at
Mhm.
this point. So I can understand why in that context he gives it a half star when we've only been dealing with the Hulk Hogan formula for weeks.
Yeah. I was gonna also make a point about like I feel like if you look at it on paper at that time, with like the way that the Undertaker was working all of his matches, and you go like, okay, Hulk Hogan, so that introduces the Hogan formula, and then facing this guy whose formula is also move slow and no sell stuff. And then you're like, and they're gonna fight each other. Two guys are gonna move slow and no sell stuff against each other. I wouldn't. I am always jazzed to see the Undertaker. I wouldn't exactly be jazzed about that formula if I was, especially if I was, like a journalist that's like wise to the business at the time, and like, you know, has contact backstage and stuff. Like you're not sitting there believing the illusion of any of it. You're just like, oh, this is gonna be like this. These two people are gonna get together. And it's gonna mix really bad. Like, but yeah, I don't know. I still feel like the product ended up being better than like a half star, but that's me.
And that's all for this episode, folks.
What an episode.
Like, rate, subscribe, do all
Like,
those
comment,
things.
Oh,
subscribe,
I guess you can rate this. This does go on YouTube, huh?
share.
You can also
Follow us
rate
on
it on.
Instagram.
You can follow us on Instagram at Learning the Ropes Pod. You can find us on. I mean, if you're listening to this, you've already found us, but you can also find us on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and we also have an RSS feed through Anchor FM. So and YouTube. You can find us on youtube.com. So there's no excuse not to listen, obviously. Recommend it to your friends, do the whole thing. Any last words, parting words?
I'm excited for next week. Am I allowed to talk about next week at all right now? Am I allowed to preview? I'm hyped.
Preview it. Go ahead.
All right. So, we're in a portion of wrestling history that I'm excited for, specifically on our cherry picked view of it, because we get to introduce a bunch of my favorite stuff in a row. We introduced Brett and Sean. We introduced the Undertaker this week, and next week we get to show Tyler the Royal Rumble match. I'm so hype. Royal Rumble 92, baby. Let's be fair to Flair.
And that's it, probably.
Ended on that.
Tyler, do you have anything you want to say to end the episode?
Oh, just doing the moaning that my fucking Paul Bearer was doing.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
my Undertaker.
what's in the yard?
Ashes, presumably.
It is
That's
an
what
urn.
they're for. That, I think, is definitively it.
Yeah.
I think we gotta be done now.